Okay, so today, friends, I'm talking about how to reverse reactive abuse. In other words, if you've been in a long-term relationship with a narcissist, whether it was a friend, a family member, a parent, a coworker, a sibling, doesn't matter the relationship. If you've been in a long-term relationship where there was a lot of interaction, you probably can look back on who you were and realize that you have changed. Right? Reactive abuse is how a narcissist trains you to be more like them, and then they can be more like you. It's almost like the only way for a narcissist to really behave is by getting their target to misbehave. And then in their mind, they're like, oh, that's that person. Now I'm okay. And so talking about reactive abuse, the thing with reactive abuse is how much it changes you on a subconscious level. And the reason for that is because the subconscious learns through repetition plus emotion. And that's exactly how a narcissist trains you to react. They don't necessarily do it with words, they do it with repetition plus emotion. So the way that happens is if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and there are disagreements, which there are disagreements in any relationship, right? It's normal to have disagreements. But what will happen with a narcissistic relationship is you will start trying to handle it in a mature way. You'll probably say things like, when you do this, it makes me feel like that, right? Or it hurts my feelings when this happens. And you're trying to show yourself, you're trying to show your feelings and how it's bothering you. You're trying to get through to the person. You're trying to reason with the person in a mature way. Well, the more mature you handle it, the more grounded you handle it, the more calm you are, the worse they are. The more aggravated, the more abusive, the more blame shifting, the more toxicity you're inhaling by trying to handle it in a normal way. Now, you're not realizing that, right? You're just kind of confused. Like, why is this person acting this way? And you're still trying to get through to them. And they stay nasty and they stay horrible. And they continue to poke and poke and poke until eventually you are human, right? You are human. So eventually you can only take so much. So there comes that moment when they say something that touches on a delicate spot in you. They know your wounds, so they know exactly what is going to set you off. And so what happens is you react. You react in a way that is outside of who you really are. You might yell, you might throw something, you might get aggressive, your fight response might kick on. You just act in a way that you know isn't you, but it's like an eruption. That's reactive abuse. You are taking the abuse until you can't take it anymore. And then unfortunately, you're reacting in a way where you become, it's like you shift from victim to perpetrator without wanting to, right? But you're actually being pushed into that role. Now you become that role, and guess what happens to the former perpetrator? Switches roles and now becomes the victim. And they will say something like, wow, like, look at you, look at how you're acting. And they'll suddenly calm down. And this is the part where it penetrates your subconscious, because your subconscious learns through repetition plus emotion. And the job of your brain is to keep you safe, not necessarily happy, but safe. And so your subconscious mind is watching, your autonomic nervous system is paying attention all the time. And it starts realizing that when I explode, there's peace. All of that machine gun abuse stops. And so your body starts associating your reaction, overreaction, with something good. And the narcissist rewards you by letting up on the abuse. It's not like they do anything good, but at least they stop abusing you. And that feels good if you've been undergoing a lot of abuse for a long time. So there's a subconscious belief that gets formed that reacting causes something positive. There's less pain. And so what you will find in a relationship with a narcissist is if you had a slow fuse when you first started in the relationship, by the end, your fuse is fast because it's been trained to be that way. Each time you're rewarded for reacting, even though the narcissist tries to make it your fault, they still let up on the abuse. And so there is a reward for that. Every time that happens and your nervous system is seeing it, it thinks it's a good thing and it reinforces that it's a good thing. And so it does it faster. And the more you're doing that and the more you're reacting that way, the more it becomes a part of your personality. And that's why so often with some of my clients, they'll say, I just don't know who I am anymore. And when I ask, well, tell me, who you are through your eyes, they'll say, well, I can tell you who I was, but it's not who I am today. So they'll say something like, I used to be really calm. I used to be very easily to communicate. I used to be a good listener. I used to be really patient. I used to, have more empathy. I used to be more kind. And now I'm just always irritated. I'm always angry. I have a short fuse. Like I'm not that person anymore. So that's what happens as a result of reactive abuse. And so I want to just let you know that the way to break free of that is to kind of do what the narcissist did with you, except in a positive way. In other words, they trained you through repetition plus emotion. They penetrated your subconscious through repetition plus emotion. And so what happened is the neural pathways to those emotions and those reactions, think of them as like a highway. And your brain, your neurons are just flying down that highway, right? And the pathway to who you once were, the calm, the patient, the, short fused person is a road or a pathway that hasn't been traveled in a long time. So it's overgrown. Doesn't mean it's not there. It just hasn't been walked down for a long time. And so you have to start carving. It's like taking a machete in the jungle, right? You have to start carving that old pathway to who you really were. The hard part of working through narcissistic abuse is that moment you realize that I'm out of this relationship, but my body, my neurons, my subconscious is still on that highway to who I had to be while in the relationship. You don't spring back to who you once were. You have to carve out those pathways once again. That's the hard part. But again, it's through repetition plus emotion. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. So let's say you were a happy person before the narcissist. You were a calm, happy person, and now you're just irritated and angry all the time. You have to understand your body's not just going to spring back and be happy because the narcissist is gone. It's been in a template of certain behaviors, thoughts, feelings, actions, reactions. So here are just like two things that can help. The first thing is to start remembering how you once were in a way that allows your brain to start, it gives it a new focus, okay? What happens is we tend to just focus on the change. I used to be like this, but now I'm like this. I'm so irritated. I'm this, and I'm angry and I react. And the more we're saying that and the more we're focusing on that, the more we're strengthening those behaviors accidentally. So when we remind ourselves, how was I? When was I like that? What was the result? And we have to sometimes really use a lot of brain effort there because sometimes it can feel like you're flinging your brain into a brick wall because the memories are hard to remember. And again, it's only because you haven't gone over that in a long time. So remembering and allowing the feelings. Remember, the subconscious learns through repetition plus emotion. So thinking about, wow, I remember I was so calm and that day I handled it like this and I was so calm and man, I feel good. I like when I'm like that. I like that quality about myself. And you start bringing it up in your body. The more you focus on those things, the more you're reminding your subconscious of who you are. That's one thing that helps. And then the second thing is starting to look at your life in the present and asking yourself, where am I showing up as who I had to be instead of who I am? Is it with my children? Is it at work? Is it just my morning routine? Like, do I wake up irritated because that's what I was trained to do? Do I wake up or am I snapping at people because that's what I learned, led up on the abuse? figure out where it's showing up still in your life, and then set up a plan. Like really start peeling away who you had to be, who you were trained to become because of the abuse, and what it looks like to be you. It's almost like you have to give your subconscious the GPS coordinates to what you want. So when you're working with your children, if they're the ones that you're feeling you're now reacting with, or if it's with a friend, if it's in a new relationship, really look at where it's showing up and start kind of defining what it looks like to be you. And then the last tip that I'm going to mention is start small and reward yourself for every step of the way. So for example, when you start getting back in touch with you, you're going to realize that it's a lot easier said than done. Because when you were you in the relationship, you were punished. So as you start going back to being you, you're going to feel things in your body. You're going to feel discomfort because your nervous system is trying to alarm you that you're doing something dangerous. It's pretty sad to think about how a narcissist can get into your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, and rewire it in the sense that you can't be you easily. Like it's almost like it sets off all these alarms. So you have to start recognizing that that's the layer of trauma, that that is normal to happen because they penetrated your subconscious and now you are getting back into your subconscious and you're rewiring it. And that's what the subconscious does. It gives us discomfort when we start operating outside of the bounds of the beliefs that it has. So if the belief is being calm, being, handling things in a rational way is dangerous, as you start to relax, it's going to be uncomfortable. So prepare for that. Recognize that that's just a sign of growth. It's just like when you work out physically. It's not until you feel the pain, those last few reps, where you're actually feeling the resistance really hard, that's when you're really working your muscle. It's the same thing with your beliefs. That's when you're really working your beliefs, when you feel that discomfort. And then it's repetition plus emotion, rewarding yourself. Now, this is hard stuff. Okay, I'm explaining it to you guys, but this is hard stuff to apply. And consistency is what's really helpful. The reminders, having that consistency and being able to build and see your progress. So that being said, if you're struggling to put this into practice on your own, you might want to check out the Thriver School of Transformation. There are 9 to 12 live meetings a month for $79.99, and it's live instruction back and forth. And we're working on narcissistic abuse recovery together with other thrivers. So it's a way to give yourself accountability. It's a way to give yourself encouragement. It's a way to get inspired by seeing the growth of others. And it's a way to stay consistent. So if you're curious about it, there is a 7-day free trial period. You can jump on right now and come check us out.